Howdy! The red button says we're live, so I'm going to take the red button at its word. Howdy! Welcome to the livecast. Jeff Bartsch here, and this is Story Greenlight, and we here at Story Greenlight are all about helping you use the power of creative video editing and powerful storytelling so that you can connect with your audience, turn up the impact of your work, and ultimately change people's lives. That's what communication is all about as far as I'm concerned. It is a powerful, powerful tool to affect change in people's hearts and minds. I love it, and I hope you love it too. I'm assuming you're kind of into that kind of stuff since you're here. So let's jump into it right now, because no time like the present. So here is what we're going to be talking about here. Check this out. I got a fancy new thing here. Can actually use some different images. Today we are talking about stories and what makes them tick. The stories that hold our attention and make us feel things and stay with us for years and years, sometimes even the rest of our lives. Some of these stories stay with us. They all have a framework, and they all have this superstructure that makes it work, that makes them so powerful. So that's what we're going to be talking about, how that structure works and how you can apply it to your own content. So, sound is good? Hey, Javier. You made it this time. Awesome, man. So, video creators, the man himself, right on. Gonna say hi to some folks as we're going here. So, Javier, video creators, good to see you, Tim. Glad you're here. What's update? It's on. Yes, indeed, Mr. Bennett. Hello, sir. Dandelion. Dandelion or Dandelion? Help me out here, man. Hola to you. Dafter things. Good to see you again. Howdy, howdy. So, here's the thing. There are a lot of people who the idea of using stories in your communication and in your videos makes obvious sense. Like if you're a vlogger, it totally makes sense to do this kind of a thing. There are a lot of other folks who are creating content online who are like, well, I do a cooking channel, or I do makeup, or I do home renovation. I'm all about how-to or DIY. And it's like it doesn't really fit the vlog story thing. I don't feel like it fits for me. If that's you, this is going to be especially helpful for you, because it's all about the idea of knowing what this framework about story is and layering elements of it in to your pieces. So it's not always just about telling a story. It's about layering this story elements in. So if you have used stories before, or like you feel like you're kind of stuck, or especially if you don't think stories fit into your content, this is going to be helpful. I would love to hear your questions, and I'd love to talk about this. So, everyone says folks are, Dandelion says, Dan, no relation to the dandelion. Fair enough. Very good. Ceza, howdy Ceza. All right. So, for those of you who are new here, a little bit about yours truly. My name is Jeff Bartsch, and I am a television editor based here in Los Angeles. I have edited with a whole bunch of different entities, ABC, NBC, Universal, Disney, a whole bunch of other folks. And I've built my career here in Hollywood telling all kinds of stories, and I've been part of thousands of hours of finished television. So the interesting thing that I've been learning recently, ever since I started this YouTube channel this past fall, it's one thing to build your career editing. It's another, editing stuff that other people have shot. It's another thing entirely to come up with the concept yourself, shoot it, and then edit. So I'm just like, oh, there's multiple learning curves in play here. So glad to see, well, I'm glad to realize this. And just so you know, if you feel like you're on a learning curve, we're all in this boat together. We're all learning as we go. And I would love to help you with the things that I've learned along my career to maybe help you get farther along the path that you want to go. So, if you're new here, that's a little bit about who I am. I believe that the idea of Hollywood being an exclusive club like it's always been is no longer the case. And I believe that everyone who always used to go to Hollywood to look for this thing called a green light, the permission from a studio executive to put your message in front of a large audience, that green light is no longer necessary from some third party. All that needs to happen is you need to give yourself that green light. You need to give yourself permission to say, hey, here's what I have to say, and here's how I'm going to share it to the world. So, it's been a long road for me learning about how this actually works. And when I was first getting started, this picture right here would be yours truly. Back in the day, this would be about in the year 2000, I believe. This was my first internship, and I was working at the show called Blind Date. Now, if you ever heard of the show Blind Date, or something called VH1 pop-up video, they're kind of similar. Back in the day, there was a show called Blind Date. It was one of the first reality dating shows when reality TV was really just starting to get started. And it was a camera crew following along this couple on a blind date, and you'd have cartoons flying around and thought bubbles popping up out of people's heads. And it ran the gamut between completely lame and fall off your chair funny. And so I started there as an intern and was eventually promoted to assistant editor. And when I was there working full-time as an assistant editor, one of the things that I was asked to do was to go through all the footage, this box full of videotapes of each date, and find 10-second snippets of funny material that could be used for the outtake while the credits were rolling at the end. Now, you'd think on the surface of it, on the surface it might sound something fairly simple, but I'm telling you, the show itself, it was all about entertaining and being funny. And so it's like when you're looking for something that's funny for the outtake, it's like time after time, it's like, well, they use this in the piece, they use this in the show, they use this in the show. It's like, dang it. And it got really, really frustrating. And there was a time when I was literally throwing junk pieces of VHS videotape against the wall because I was so frustrated. And my producer said to me, like, dude, this is not difficult. All you're looking for is for something that has a beginning and a middle and an end. And I'm stopped dead in my tracks. I'm like, really? That's it? I mean, and I was sitting here coming up together with this, coming up with my notes for the stream today. I'm just like desperately trying to remember a specific outtake that I actually ended up finding, and I could not for the life of me remember anything. So it usually ended up being something like, you know, at one point of the date, this couple is sitting down over dinner. And so a typical outtake from this would be couple sitting at dinner, guy says something, girl asks a question, and guy makes a response to the question that is kind of dumb or makes the girl laugh, and there you have it. So it's like that's the very simplest when you're talking about forming a story. The very simplest idea of a story is beginning, middle, and end. I actually talked about this in one of the videos that I did on the channel. It's called 3 Tips for Great Storytelling, 3 Easy Tips for Great Storytelling. And one of the things that I talk about in there is that we are conditioned, in our Western culture at least, we are conditioned to think in the idea of threes. We think about bump, set, spike, if you're familiar with volleyball. We think about ready, set, go. And we also think in terms of storytelling, we think of beginning, middle, and end. And so like if you're wanting us like this whole story framework thing, it seems really complicated, and believe me, it can get super crazy complicated. But at its very essence, at its very core, it is actually very, very simple. It has those 3 elements. You start, there's something that happens in the middle, and there's the result at the end. It's a transition from point A to the middle, and you end up in point B. So, here's the thing. The longer the story, the more important it is that you go beyond the basics. And we will talk about that in just a second. But since this is live, I want to say, check in with y'all in the comments and say, thanks again, Diane, for heads up with the sound. Very good, very good. Dafter Things, did your book ever get released in physical copy outside the U.S.? You know, it did. Amazon, it is available on Amazon physically. We've shipped, actually, this is kind of funny. My wife and I make a joke about every time, my wife actually does the shipping. She is the fulfillment department at Resolve Entertainment, my production company. And anytime we send a book internationally, we make a joke about the things that we're not allowed to send in the mail. And usually it's something weird like, you are not allowed to send snails to Denmark. Why not? I think, who knows? But it's illegal, so don't you dare send snails to Denmark. But we have sent stuff to the UK, so I'm not sure. So let's see. What's update? Hey everyone, share the stream out to let people know this is live. Hey, please do. Thanks for the shout. Justin says, film is about storytelling, passion will shine through your work. Preach. Absolutely. Pop-up video. Yes, there is some crazy stuff with that show. Thumbs up, greetings from Poland. Sweet. What's up, Catch and Relax? I would say hello in Polish, but I don't know how to, so hi. Yes, Blind Date had some very, very funny moments. Okay, hey Richard. So, back to the idea of this story framework. So, here we are. You have the basic level. That's story structure 101. Now, here's the thing. The longer your story goes, the more difficult it is to keep people's attention. Hence, the more important it is that you use a more solid and intentional framework to actually make that happen. So, here is that framework. The definition of a story. It is where a character wants something, overcomes obstacles to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. So, I'll say it again. The definition of a story is where a character wants something, overcomes conflict to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. So, you know, there are all sorts of things that have been written about storytelling. It does go from that definition out to like full-blown 3-act structure in feature films where you don't just have a character who wants something and there's conflict and then there's resolution and the transformation result. There are bumps and twists and turns in the story, and it interacts with how people, how the audience expects one thing and then ends up getting another, and it can get very complex. And frankly, I'm not a screenwriter. I make no claims to be operating at that level. So I'm not going to pretend that I do. But I will say, the stories that are the most powerful, they have all those additional elements right here. So let me tell you a little bit. About a storyline for yours truly right here. So, some of my background is I came out to Los Angeles to I came out to LA to pursue my career in television. I kind of ended up getting into it kind of just because I was like, well, I'll go to film school, and then I ran out of money in film school, and I'm just like, what's next? So I talked to some of my film professors, and I ended up getting a phone number for a guy who gave me my first internship, right here to this show right here, Blind Date, my first job in post-production in Los Angeles. over the time, so like the character would be yours truly. I didn't really know what I wanted for a while, but what I thought I wanted was I wanted to edit great big shows. And so I did some small cable stuff, and then I ended up getting my first major network gig. I was editing for NBC. I was actually on the NBC lot and eating at the NBC commissary. And at this time, Jay Leno was actually the host of The Tonight Show. And it was always the question of, hey, what car would Leno drive into work today? So sometimes you'd see a Corvette, and sometimes you'd see a Model T. It was kind of crazy. But what I was thinking was that I wanted to do all these big, more important, fancy shows. And what I realized when I got there was that I didn't feel any different. I mean, it's like it was the same thing. I mean, except it was just seen by more people, but I didn't feel much different about where I was going there. And so within that journey, what I thought I wanted to do these bigger, bigger, more important stuff, what I thought I wanted changed. Because of that process of the conflict of me trying to get there, I ended up realizing that what I actually want to do is, number one, support my family without doing something that I hate, which, hey, it's all good. I mean, I'm here in my edit bay over lunch hour, about to have some lunch after we're done here. I won't eat in front of you because that would be rude, but I get to do what I love, and I absolutely love doing that. But what I really want to do in terms of my purpose is I love telling stories, and I love teaching, and I love helping people who tell stories. And so that's the twist of what I want, frankly, is to do what I'm doing right now. And my aim, the conflict standing in my way right now from what I want is I'm learning about how to build a community, how to build a following on YouTube. I almost said Facebook. This is not Facebook. So that is now, there's all sorts of conflict standing in my way as the character who thought he wanted this but realized he wanted that, and now he's on a new path. So, question for you guys. What is your gut reaction to this story definition here? Is there anything you agree with? Is there anything you disagree with? If anything comes to mind, drop me a comment. I'm going to check out comments, see what you're doing. Former Gorilla, what are you using for sound right now? Sounds good. Thank you. Surely it's not that headset, right? As a matter of fact, it is. As a matter of fact, Former Gorilla, it is this. Oh, how about if yes, it is this guy right here. I won't bang on it too hard, just because I don't want to hurt anyone or freak out any auto gain stuff. Really, it's crazy. Like the interesting thing was I actually got a comment from a Story Greenlight community member on another video. He's like, dude, how do you get the sound on your iPhone to sound so good? Like, I was doing a vlog out on my iPhone, and it turned out like he's actually an audio engineer, like a professional audio engineer. It's like, dude, how do you get it to sound so good? And it's like, hold the phone right up here close to my face. It's pretty simple. Although I do some additional stuff with compression and some light EQ stuff. So that helps things stay crisp and crunchy. But point is, a lot of people who wonder how to get good sound, it's not always difficult. Sometimes the very best, like if you get a $20 mic right in front of you here, it will always, almost always, 99% of the time, a $20 mic this close to your face will always sound better than a $1,000 mic way back in the corner of the room. So just get the mic close to you. Okay. Thanks, Tim. Yes, I'm back. I realized it's like, you know what? I should make sure that we don't just hang on those stills. Okay. After things, completely agree. Often I write a bad story, then realize it doesn't follow that, even loosely. Your talent is knowing what's wrong with my stories without you even reading them. Well, I don't know. After things, feeling convicted, I guess? I don't know. But hey, I mean, just starting with that framework, it's an awesome, awesome starting place. And you can get as complex as you would ever want to go from there. James Hillman, it's easy to confuse anecdotes with stories. Transformation is the difference. Yes, yes, yes. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. There's a lot of stuff with when people, I'm wanting to be circumspect here. I'm wanting to be careful with how I'm thinking about this, because I'm realizing that my perspective, the place where I'm coming from, frankly, is from the position of old media. Television is old media. That's where I built my career. And I want to be careful about making pronouncements of things that fit in old media as opposed to digital online media, which, you know, these ideas may or may not fit. So the idea that you're saying, James, about it's easy to confuse anecdotes with stories, transformation is the difference. It would seem that there are a lot of examples that one could pick up about people telling anecdotes and saying, hey, here's a vlog, or here's just a talking head, here's something that happened. End of story. Millions and millions of views. And there are obviously a lot more things that play with that. If you're available, Tim, with video creators, I would and have some thoughts on how to chime in on that. I would love your input. I'm sure everyone else would. But yeah, I mean, it's easy. If you have a large amount of star quality, and people will just they will sit there and watch you brush your teeth for 10 minutes, just staring at the mirror, nothing changes. And everyone's like, this is amazing. So I will offer that with a bit of humility, saying it's like it's not, you know, there are often additional elements in play. But the stuff that really sticks, the stuff that really hits you in the gut, the stuff that really hits you in your heart, and actually makes audiences want to change, want to move, change the way they think, that's where the transformation comes. You know, I'm actually going to, if you don't mind sharing a personal story. Dang it, I don't have a picture of this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up a picture of my little son. My son Levi is adopted. He comes from a family who's, I'm finding this in my favorites. Okay. All right. Now hold this up right here. See how that goes. Can you? All right. Slightly blurry, but that's my little son Levi. And that is our dog Saint. Levi, his birth mother is white. His birth father is black. And there's a time when someone asked us, in the process of us adopting Levi, eventually a social worker raised the question, said, "Are you ready to raise your son as a black man?" And when I first heard that question, I'm like, how on earth would that work? Number one, at where I was at the time, I thought that was a really dumb question. I'm like, why not just raise him as a man? But you know what? That's where I started. That's where my mind started. And I will say, the only reason that my mind has moved from that point to where I am learning more about what it actually means to be a black man in the American culture today is because I started listening to the stories of what it's like to actually be a black man, and to realize it's like, I have a friend of mine who is a feature director at Warner Brothers Animation. He goes to my church. He has 5 kids, and he is on first name basis with a security guard at 7-Eleven because, he is on first name basis with security guards at 7-Eleven because they have stopped him enough times that they know his name and he knows theirs. His wife is white. Forgive me, like my friend, he is African American. His wife is white, and she has never been stopped by a security guard at any 7-Eleven. Nor have I, frankly. And that's a very small, a seemingly small instance of what it's like for my friend to be black in today's culture. When I start adding more and more stories like that, there's an incredible book by Ta-Nehisi Coates called Between the World and Me. And he goes into crazy length about what it's like for him and his son, and raising his son as a black man in the culture. So it's, like, there is incredible conflict, there is incredible struggle even today, and I was never aware of it. I've never been aware of it. I've never had to be aware of it. But it's only because of hearing those stories from those people that I now even have a prayer of understanding what that's like, number one, and number two, knowing how to be the best father to my son. Because frankly, I don't feel like right now I cannot raise him as a black man because I'm not, and I don't know how that would work. But by the grace of God, I'm learning. So it's like it's those stories that I've heard from people who are living this that have made my mind, that have changed my mind. Let's see here. Let me catch up with some of your stories here. Dan DeLeon, coming up with conflict is the hardest part for me. I do vlogs, awesome framework for story. Very cool. Here's another part of the discussion, though, Dan. Vlogs can get by without showing conflict because you can actually keep people entertained and keep things interesting if you show a transformation. That's the number one cure-all, is to start at point A, end up at point B, or to go through a process. You start at the beginning and you end up at the end. So that, if hopefully that will be helpful to you, Dan. It's like it will be absolutely helpful to have conflict if you want a long-running story, or a story running over multiple episodes or over multiple seasons. But but be encouraged. You don't always have to have conflict. It's just that when you do, you have a much greater chance of getting a story that sticks and really grabs people's hearts and minds. 7 Blessings. Hello there. Hi. After Things. I've written really good stories in the past, but it's by luck, intuition rather than a framework. Knowing why those stories worked is gold dust. Awesome. Hopefully it's a gold mine that continues to produce for years and years to come. Video creators. I missed that part. Discovered a fun way to organize data in YouTube analytics. I'm geeking out right now. Awesome. Very cool. If I can, you can. Hi. Good to see you. Glad I caught your live stream. Hey, you know what? If I can, you can. You should do this too. You said you were thinking about doing it someday. I think you should actually do that. The African homestead. I totally get that. We live in Liberia and have adopted 3 children here. We're fearful about what our boys will encounter when we move back to the States and they get older. Frankly, so it's like there's a year ago when all the Black Lives Matter kind of stuff was blowing up, and all the Blue Lives Matter and All Lives Matter and all these things were happening. it just struck me. It's like if my son was 15 years old and he was wearing a hoodie, walking down the street with his hoodie up, the difference between him walking down the street and me walking down the street with a hoodie with it up, it's a completely different reality. So I would be lying if I didn't say that there's an element that I don't know exactly what's going to happen raising my son. The African Homestead. How do you decide to be personal and transparent on your blogs? How do you decide how transparent and personal to be on your blogs? That is an excellent question. I don't pretend to be an expert on that either myself, but I will say, there are a lot of people out there who try. Well, I mean, you can look up article after article online. You know, it's just like through news feeds talking about how people are getting depressed about social media because all that we're doing is like we're comparing our daily boring humdrum life to everyone's highlight reels that they present online. And that ends up being really depressing for a lot of people. It's like, oh, my life is totally boring and lame compared to other people's airbrushed Instagram filtered life. And the fact of the matter is, kind of interesting, over at Video Creators, Tim Schmoyer did an interview with Donnell Walford of a channel called Weed'em and Reap. Just recently came out. And they talked about, Donnell talked about the need to be transparent and the need to be authentic. And the thought that popped into my mind, and I actually left a comment there, I can't tell you how many times throughout my career editing television, there have been people who, there have been producers who say it's like either inferring or either saying it outright that, basically saying that the audience is dumb, that we'll leave this thing for the smart people to figure out. And the fact of the matter is, there is a huge change in television right now. We have swung back the pendulum from huge amounts of unscripted and reality and competition television. That pendulum has swung back the other way to we're now back in a golden age of scripted shows. And I believe that one of the reasons that is scripted shows tend to be a lot more thoughtfully crafted, and they are much more likely to assume that the audience is smart, and they require the audience to figure out some things and to engage mentally and intellectually, rather than, as with so much unscripted content, you're just like, here is the spoon. Enjoy eating this content that I'm spoon feeding to you. So all that to say, African Homestead, I don't know that. I would dare to step out beyond what was comfortable for being personal and transparent with your content, because the chances are it will end up hitting just the right note. I can't imagine that you or I would ever actually do anything that would endanger people that we love. And that's probably a line not to cross. But it's like, don't say where your personal residence is. Just that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, so much of the time when we're putting together our stories, we're worried about looking dumb. That's one of the main roadblocks. It's, so if that's the main obstacle standing in the way of our audience getting to know us better, I say push through that obstacle and be as real as you feel uncomfortable doing, without crossing any specific lines that you have set up in your own mind. Dan, man, got to go to work. Watch this later on the replay. Sweet. Glad you're here, Matt. Javier. My boss always says that when you're in a theater and the lights go off, the cumulative IQ goes up 20% because they're searching for the plot and plot twists. That's great. That is very cool. Very cool. If I can, I'd like to do scripted content. I'm not sure I'm a natural for live stream. Well, I will say, if I can, you can. I totally identify with that. My career is all about sitting in front of this console, making all these thousands of decisions. So I can have things figured out beforehand. But you know what? This idea of me going live, it stretches me. And I propose that you would benefit from being stretched as well. Thanks for the time, African Homestead. Of course. Hey, that's, this is important stuff. One of the most important things about a story is that it's real and it is authentic. And the more willing we are to be authentic and vulnerable, to the point of maybe looking stupid, or maybe like presenting the idea that we don't have all our act together, that's a big deal. People resonate with that. Zuzix, how fast do editors work? For example, how long would it take to edit 10 minutes of a TV show? I couldn't give a definitive answer to that because it completely depends. There have been times when I've been hired to cut the cold open for an episode. It's like the first 90 seconds of what you see. And it's a very intensely edited, very high energy kind of a thing. And I've been hired to work on those for up to a full week. So I've spent up to a full week editing 90 seconds of television. Whereas back in the day, like actually this show right here, if you look closely there at what's on the console, you'll see that it's a UFC fight. And I actually did a whole bunch of documentary promo episodes for the UFC, and we would put together, our producer would put together a paper cut, basically which is not nearly as painful as it sounds. They would put a script on paper, and I would have a week to cut a section of the show that was a complete story, and it was like 7 minutes long. So one of the things I will say in terms of how long it takes to edit television, this is one of my big challenges here in terms of engaging with YouTube. A lot of the power that comes from editing comes from when you pay attention to, when you have a great idea and when you execute it well, often by paying close attention to details. Now, when you have something like a YouTube piece of content for YouTube, which has a very short shelf life compared to an episode of television or certainly to a feature film, you just can't spend hours and hours putting this stuff together. That's my challenge right now. I love to spend the time because I love doing it. I'm still figuring out how to outsource elements of that. Which I will say, I'm happy to say, for those of you who are at a point where you're looking to expand what you're doing and you're thinking about the idea of outsourcing, the question to ask yourself is, what requires my brain specifically to do? I've been thinking about that for myself. And there are some things in terms of content creation that does absolutely require my brain. But for instance, there is a product based around this, which many of you have. It's a video training based around this that I've actually put the thought into creating, and I've shot it. And now I'm actually going to be meeting with one of my VIP coaching clients on Friday, and I'm going to be handing her a drive, and she's going to fly back to Denver, where she lives, and she's going to be putting together that stuff because that does not specifically require my brain. throwing that out there. So, if you have a specific follow-up question to that, Zuzix, about how long it takes to edit 10 minutes, let me know. Agree on the being Big G Media. I think there's plenty of drama in everyday relationships. True story. Agree on being real, says Brian Sapp. Howdy, Brian. Good to see you here, man. Now that I'm telling stories in front, I approach it by trying to be descriptive of the moment. I've received the best feedback when I do that. Sweet. Yes. Very cool. If I can, you can. Are you using the new YouTube live stream on the laptop? No. I'm actually using the low-end license of a program called Wirecast. If you hear this, Tim, I think I heard you, Tim Schmoyer, I think you said at one point that you use Wirecast as well. Do you? What else? What do you use? I'd be curious to know if you're available. After Things. I have a script for a short film, but worried it's too dark and people will think it's revealing an inner torment, which I hope it isn't. You know what? That's a tough call. That's a tough call in terms of what one admits to being autobiographical or not. But frankly, I think After Things, I think the idea of going too dark, that's more related to the crowd that you present it to. You know, if you have a really dark story, you're not going to try to put it to you're not going to try to put it in front of a Disney crowd. You're looking for someone who wants something darker. So if that helps the thought process there. I use Wirecast, but I don't really like it, says Tim. I want to move away to something else badly. But Wirecast is buggy. Almost always gives me problems. It requires a lot of system resources. I want to move to vMix, but I need to get Windows computer first. Ugh. I'm sorry. I'm speaking in my outside voice again. It's like I've spent my whole career being a Mac guy, and just ugh, and I'm not a fan of Windows. Okay, so here's something. Here's something to think about. So going back to this idea of the definition of a story, this framework where a character wants something, overcomes obstacles to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. Coming up to the last section here. Some of that framework absolutely works for individual stories or for multiple stories, or like the theme of a vlog, or for a story that winds throughout your entire life. And I will tell you, the number one thing that keeps your audience engaged is the question, well, actually is the right question. When you start a story and you ask a question, the audience wants to know what the answer is. And so when you throw out a question and you answer it right away, the audience is like, cool, I'm good, I have the answer, I don't need to pay attention anymore. So that, and that frankly is a sign often of immature storytelling, of the idea of question and you answer it right away, but you expect people to stay interested. It's like, well, why? Why should they? And so one of the great things that you can do is to always ask questions that don't have pat, easy answers. Now, got a couple examples of this. Now, if you've ever heard of this guy. So, Casey Neistat, known by many as the godfather of the vlog, he is incredibly good. He is incredibly good at telling stories. And the fact of the matter is, you may or may not have known this, Casey Neistat started out as a legitimate, like full-on filmmaker Like, he had a feature film that was accepted into Sundance, and he and his brother actually put together a series that was sold to HBO as like a television series. So like, the dude knows his stuff. As casual and snappy as he makes things look on camera, the dude knows his stuff, and he knows what he's doing. But here's what's happening with Casey Neistat's story. He a few years ago started up an app called Beam, a company called Beam, B-E-M-E, that was acquired by CNN for, I believe, $25 million or some such. And just at the beginning of this year, CNN said, no bueno, you're done. And Neistat left Beam. And so now his question is, what do I do next? What do I want to accomplish? And so he actually is showing this progression of this unanswered question in a new show that he's doing on his channel called, his same channel, but it's a new show that he's calling 368, which is actually it's actually named after the address on the, it's named for the address on, what is it, 368 Broadway, I believe it is. So there's that. But the thing is, you don't know, like he's building out this space. You don't know what's going to happen to that space. You don't know what it's going to look like when it's renovated. You don't know what characters are going to move in. And that's what keeps people coming back. Now, here's another example. Ironically, the Schmovies family vlogging channel with Tim Schmoyer and his wife Dana and their whole crew of kids. Did I pronounce Dana right, Tim? I was not expecting Tim to be on the channel today. Schmovies is all about becoming a family team. And the idea, and I've talked with Tim about this, he talks about the ongoing story of his vlog is not just about, hey, look at us, we do fun stuff, or hey, look at all the kids. Holy crap, look at all the kids. That's not what it's about, although there is an element of that. He says the idea is, how can we grow together and be a family team? How can the vlogs show about the value of family and community and supporting each other? And so one of the storylines that, frankly, is heartbreaking, good grief, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Tim's daughter, Livia, was born with a cataract in her eye. And so it's like this tiny little baby. She's like, will she be able to see or not? Will she have to go for yet another surgery or not? It's heartbreaking. But man, it's like, you want to know how that happens. You want to know how that happens. And there are no easy answers. And that is one of the elements that is incredibly real and relevant, and there's a reason that the Schmovies channel is this close to getting 100,000 subscribers, because they're telling really great stories. I'm gonna jump back to comments. Nick Nimmin recommends Streamlabs OBS. You know what? I've seen him do that. Maybe that's something worth looking at. After things. What about when the character does not overcome it, which is why my story is so dark? Is that normal? Heck yeah, that's normal. That just means that we don't experience what we expect. Life is not pat, happy answers. It's not all about, it doesn't always happen that way. So as long as you feel that the story is real, and that it resonates with real life, I don't know. Seems like I don't know what the story is specifically to After Things, but man, it sounds like if it's real, that's the direction to go. Woot, I know these guys. Ha ha. Yeah, Dana. Okay. Casey's workflows to be admired. Dude pumps out the content. Yes, he does, says James. So hey. I'm going to wrap this up here because I have lunch to eat here, and folks, I should be careful of the time. So, just want to go back to this definition. This is the framework. This is how to build a story that keeps people engaged. It's this. And to encourage you that don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to be real. People are desperate for people who are real, for people who aren't posing, because the online world is full of posers. And also, don't be afraid to tell stories that don't have easy answers, because frankly, that's the way life works. And that's the way we learn and we grow, when we don't know the answers and we have to struggle and we work and we work and we work. That's how real change happens. Okay, gonna jump in. Asian romance. Will you comment or review videos of some of your subscribers in the future? Yes, I will. Here's the question. Here, one more question for y'all who are still here. There are different levels of engagement with Story Greenlight here. I'm all about providing value for you guys, because that's why I'm here. That's what I want to see happen. And the initial level of engaging with Story Greenlight is you get to watch free videos on YouTube. Then you could go up a level from there, and you can say you subscribe to the channel, and then you comment and you engage regularly. Then you could actually go up to the next level. There is something that I've put together for free. It's called 27 Questions to Craft the Perfect Video. And there's a link in the description of the video. If you don't already have this, I'm firmly convinced that every content creator needs a copy of this. It will change the way you think about your content. How do I know this? Because it changed mine when I was writing this list. That's how powerful it is. So that's another level. My question for you guys is, what would be so valuable for you that you would be willing, so incredibly valuable that would be such a game changer for you that you would be willing to pay for it? What pay money for it? You know, what could I offer for a paid training that you would find incredibly valuable? I will never ask people for money without first providing value. So that's my rule. But I want to be able to be of service in the right way to the right people in ways that would be of the best help to you. So you could think about that here. I'm about to wrap up here, but if you have any ideas, comment here or send an email to support@storygreenlight.com. That's support@storygreenlight.com. I would love to know what you think. I would love to know what would be valuable for you. So that's what we got for today. Thank you for being here. Checking one last time. I'm still here. Awesome. Hello. If I can, you can. What's update? Subbed and got the PDF, bought the book. Fantastic. Repeat the question, please. Feed dropped. The question is, I assume the question is, out of the different levels of engagement with Story Greenlight, what sort of paid trainings could I offer that would be of hugely valuable to you? What would be the things that you would love to see happen from a paid training from Story Greenlight? Because I want to know, so I can help you get there. Okay, so that is what we got for today. If you have not gotten a copy of this, you should grab it in the subscription. Grab it in the links below the description. And otherwise, it is a privilege hanging out with y'all. Keep telling your stories, because stories are the way that lives get changed. So have a good day, and I will catch you later.